Hello guys, and today I'm going to talk politics. I'm going to discuss Kamala Harris's view about how to reduce crime and how she feels people can feel more safe if her policies were introduced. Now, Kamala Harris is currently running to become Vice President of the United States. On Tuesday, America will decide whether the Vice President remains Mike Pence or whether Kamala Harris will be the Vice President. Many people believe that if Joe Biden does become President, it's only a matter of time before, perhaps due to deteriorating health or maybe even death, that Kamala Harris would herself become the president. Simply because if Joe Biden is no longer able to be the president, then for extreme health reasons, or because maybe he died, if Joe Biden became the president, then Kamala Harris would take over. But what are her views on this? Well, I'm going to tell you roughly how Kamala Harris thinks you should deal with crime, okay? Now, supposing, for example, there were terrible riots on the streets. You see lots and lots of rioting, lots of shop windows being smashed, people running in and, grabbing things and stealing them. You also see lots of things being set fire to, and terrible, terrible riots, okay? Riots have happened all over the world, including Britain, at various times, okay? So, let's look at what a riot was like a few years ago in London. Okay, but that's London. In America, it could get far worse because in America they have access to guns, so people could go on a shooting spree. But how does Kamala Harris think that these communities could be made more safe? Well, I'm going to, a bit later on, show you an actual clip of Kamala Harris talking and discussing herself, in her own words, how she thinks it should be done, but I'm going to demonstrate how she believes it should be done. Something like this. Okay? Now imagine you're a concerned citizen at home, and you look out your window and you see all these riots, and you see, you know, and you live near some shops, and you see shops being set fire to, and you see rioting and things being smashed, like I've described. So what you would do is you would pick up the phone. Then, over here, you would dial 999. Then you would pick up the phone. Just a minute. I'll use this here because the microphone's on this ear. Then you would pick up the phone and say, "Hello, could you send a university professor round, please? There's several people smashing windows of shops and setting fire to things and stealing things. We think you should send a university professor round to educate these people who are doing all this. Clearly, they need to learn all about calculus, and they need to know how about nuclear physics, and they need to be told, you know, how to, you know, what the proud give advice on what might be some methods that could be used to cure cancer. We think you should come round, and we need you to send round a university professor, preferably several of them if you can, to come round and educate these people, because at the moment they're smashing the place up and they're stealing things and they are setting fire to things. And we think that if you send some professor around, and preferably a few of them, then they'll stop smashing things, they'll stop vandalising things, they'll stop setting fire to buildings, they'll stop setting fire to cars, and they might stop stealing some things. So please, this is an emergency. Please, send a university professor around immediately. Thanks." Oh, the address? The High Street, some town. Somewhere in America. Okay, can you come round soon? Okay, you can send someone around soon. I mean, not you personally, but you can send a university professor around soon to sort this out. Okay, thanks. Bye. Right, now you probably thought that was complete rubbish, and you probably think, what the hell am I talking about? Well, let's listen now to Kamala Harris herself in her own words about how she feels communities can be made more safe by actually not putting police on the streets, but instead putting more money into the public education system.
We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street, instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities.
Right. Now my view is this woman is clearly a complete thickhead. She clearly has zero common sense on this. And on this, I'm afraid I'm 100% with Donald Trump. There may be some bad apples in the police force, but you need them when there is trouble. You need policemen to come round and sort out evil scum. Not because they wrote some rubbish on Twitter, but because they're actually vandalising shops, stealing from shops, harming people. And you need the police to come and sort that out when those problems do exist. When there were riots in London, I wanted the police on the streets to arrest these people and stop them doing it. I did not want, say, well, we don't want to spend money, we don't want to send the police there, we'd rather put more money into the education system. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And I'm going to say what Kamala Harris and a lot of other well-meaning idiots haven't got the guts to say. A lot of scumbags aren't interested in education. A lot of people from wealthy families aren't even interested in education. There are a lot of children and people, adults, who quite frankly are not in the slightest bit interested in education whatsoever. You could give them access to the best education in the world, and they would ignore it and not bother. There are some people who genuinely want the opportunity and are denied. But in the modern world of the internet, I believe if you give somebody access to the internet and they know enough to learn, and they know enough to read and write, then and be able to speak, then frankly they could probably learn anything they wanted off the internet without having to worry about anybody else. There is so much information out there if they really, really, really want to learn themselves. Back in my day, you had to buy books on everything, and often, there was a culture of children didn't really buy books, those kind of books, and parents didn't buy it, unless you were from a certain social background. But these days, lots of people have the internet. Working class people have access to the internet these days, and therefore, if they want to, they can spend their time learning whatever's being taught at school off the internet for free, apart from the obvious cost of the internet. So, I believe that that's not going to help at all. You might think, well, what if they did get a good education? Well, for example, there are people like Simon Cowell and Richard Branson. Okay, their parents were very rich, and so they sent their children, i.e. Simon Cowell and Richard Branson, to expensive boarding schools in Britain. Normal people could not afford to send their children to these kind of schools. A cleaner and a labourer could not afford to send their child to the sort of school they went to. If they had wanted to, the schools were the sort of schools where they could easily have got top grades if they wanted to, and they could have become lawyers or professors or anything if they put their mind to it, because they were sent to such good schools. However, both Richard Branson and Simon Cowell, despite being sent to good schools where their parents are paying a lot of money for them to be there, admitted openly they couldn't be bothered to try. They found it boring, and they admitted openly they couldn't be bothered with it. They got worse grades in their exams than I did. And I went to a school for poor people down the road. It wasn't literally down the road, it was about 2 or 3 streets away, but you get the idea, right? It was very near anyway, right? And at the time, if you were poor, you had to go to the local school, and that was where it was. You had no choice whatsoever in where you sent your child. If you're poor, the government just said, you will go to the nearest school unless it's full. And that was it. And the only way you could get out of that was if you then did better later on. And there was some for people who were exceptional. Then I think there were special schemes for people who were exceptional. But generally speaking, for most people, if your family were poor, you went to the local school, and that was that. And it was definitely the way it was when you were very young, like 5 years old, okay? And nowadays, I believe parents can choose where they send their child, but again, they can send their child to schools provided by the government if they're poor. They can't send their school to an expensive one unless they've got the money to do so, okay? There may be rare exceptions, but, it's exceptionally rare, right? So that's the way it is. So these are people like Simon Cowell and Richard Branson, who had an excellent potential start in life regarding education. They went to good schools where they could have got top grades, but they just couldn't be bothered. And you have somebody like me, who is often mocked in Skype groups for being supposedly lazy. In reality, when I went to school, they had a computer club after school for people who want to take part in it. I used to take part in it every day. I used to stay up at school till at least 6 o'clock at night, voluntarily, taking part in this computer club, where we would learn about computers, computer coding and things like this, which were generally not taught originally. Then I did actually do an AO level at school, and I got a grade A, which is the highest. And then I did A-level computers, and I was told I would have got 100% in the exam, and I got a grade A for it. And then I went on to university, again paid for by the government, because my parents didn't have a lot of money. Okay, now, so you've got somebody like me, right, who actually came from one of these supposedly disadvantaged families, or what you might call it in some ways, financially, and went all the way to go off and get a degree. But I could be bothered to try. There were many people at my school who couldn't be bothered to try. I was one of only 2 white men at my school that went on, that were actually doing A-levels at my school, and went on to get to university or polytechnical from my school in the year I was at. The vast majority of the white kids, if I'm being brutally honest, at my school, I'll rephrase that. The vast majority of the boys, the white boys at my schools were, if I'm being brutally honest, hooligans. They just weren't interested. And they just used to throw things at the teacher, insult the teacher, and had absolutely no interest in learning whatsoever. It's the brutal truth. Now you might say, why did I say white children? Well, there are also lots of what I will loosely describe as Indian children at my school, where their parents were from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, that region. And those children tried really, really hard because their parents had bulldozed them into becoming medical doctors from birth. And they all got into medical school. I'm calling it medical school in simple terms. They went to universities where they would learn medicine, but I'll call it medical school to make it simple, okay? And lots of them got good grades and got into good universities where they would study medicine. So there is some truth in partly what she's saying. If you offer some people opportunity, they will take it. But there are lots of people who are just violent troublemakers, and frankly, no matter what opportunities you provide them, they are not interested. At my school, you had people who could go off and go to university to become a medical doctor, and it was very hard to get the grades for that, but they managed to get them nonetheless. And there are other children at the same school who couldn't be bothered to try, who left school with no qualifications whatsoever, and some of them left at 16, and then they went off to become labourers or work in factories or things like that. So the point is, even if you offer the opportunity, even if you put the money into the education system, a lot of kids still aren't interested. And to be brutally honest, when there's trouble on the streets, the only thing that will solve it is sending in either the army or the police or someone like that to get the scum off the streets and lock them up and stop them causing any more trouble. Because I'm sorry, just spending more money on the education system is not going to make some people who would otherwise cause trouble not cause trouble. I'm sorry, that is the brutal, harsh reality. There may be some people who later on in life would like to turn their life around. There may be some people who've done nasty things, gone to prison for them, and then want to turn their life around. Okay? For example, we had over here somebody who went to prison for killing somebody in an armed robbery. In prison, they took part in drama classes. When they came out, they joined the BBC as a soap actor. Originally, the BBC didn't know about their evil past. Then, when their evil past came out, the BBC decided to not punish them and let them keep their job, because their viewers, well, they tried to change and tried to turn their life around. So That's that. Many years later, you know, they killed off the character. They then brought the character back later, even though they literally killed off the character. That's another matter, right? A sort of back from the dead type of storyline. But after that, the guy went off to become a game show host. And this was somebody who actually went to prison for murdering somebody during an armed robbery. Now, so sometimes people can turn their life around and try to educate themselves, like he tried to learn to be an actor and things like that. But for many people, they're just, at the time, they're just complete scumbags. And I'm sure if when this guy was actually robbing somebody, you know, with a gun, I bet if you'd have sent a drama teacher around at that time to try to get this guy to stop, you know, trying to rob this guy and go away, it'd have probably told him to get lost. Many years later, when, well, not many, but a few, you know, soon after maybe, when, you know, he went to prison, maybe then he thought, well, this drama teacher will help me. But at the time when he was actually pointing a gun at somebody, before he actually killed them, I don't think he would have took a blind bit of notice, right? And so that's the point I'm trying to make, you know. And for those who wonder who that guy was, I'm just going to double check, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yeah, Leslie Grantham. So if you look for Leslie Grantham, you will find out about this guy who was a convicted murderer, who shot somebody dead in an armed robbery, although he claims it was an accident, but there's it's not quite as simple as it seems. But nonetheless, it was not disputed that he turned up with a shotgun or something like that and pointed it at a taxi driver and tried to rob the guy. Anyway, so there you go. And he did go to prison officially for murder. So there you go. I believe that Kamala Harris is a complete idiot. She clearly has no understanding of people. She doesn't understand that some people are just scum. And no matter how nice you try to make their life, they will still cause trouble. Sometimes people will still break the law even if they've got no excuse to break the law. For example, we have a chef in Britain called Anthony Worrell Thompson. Okay, he was famous. He was on the television. You could buy products with his name on it, like, I can't remember exactly what they were, but there might be things like grills and toasters. I can't remember exactly the products, but it was those kind of things, you know, where there were kitchen products you could have with his name put on the product. Okay, right? When he was famous, I mean, when he was famous, not years before, not when he was 18, not when he was trying to make it, but when he was actually famous, and he owned lots of restaurants, and at this time, he was actually caught stealing from a supermarket. This guy owned several restaurants. He was on the television. He was famous in Britain. I think he might even be famous worldwide, because I think a lot of our shows have shown in other countries. So this guy had no need to go into Tesco's and steal some food. He wasn't exceptionally poor. He wasn't starving. He wasn't on the breadline. But even though he had no need to do this, he did it anyway. So that's my point. Sometimes some people are just plain bad, and you need the police to sort out bad people. Educating people just isn't enough. Some people are just bad, and they need to be dealt with. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.